What is going on, you guys? Cameron here with another YouTube video slash podcast. We post our podcast audio from our YouTube channel, so the YouTube videos that we make on YouTube. If the audio is sufficient enough for our podcast, we also publish it there. Today is guaranteed geared towards our YouTube channel and our podcast channel. If you don't know about our podcast, we post on Anchor, and Anchor distributes our podcast to, I believe, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of those things. Anchor's pretty good at getting distribution out there. Our first podcast was about a conversation I had on FaceTime with my father. My father works part-time of the year in Hawaii, and I FaceTimed him and recorded the conversation. I actually posted the conversation on our YouTube channel. You can see here, and it's a more of a father-son conversation, not really geared towards one specific topic. We do ramble a lot about different types of things and basically getting his overview of the early days of Microsoft Access. But today we are going to be jumping into the true cost of owning and renting software, and what is the best benefit it will have to your business or a future business that you're looking to build, or an area of software that you've never even thought about. So the cool thing with FileMaker, FileMaker is cool because it's a low code platform where you can really dive into and make a very sophisticated app, and we can do a lot of different things between making an app work only on your computer versus making an app that is live on the web, that's accessible for your iPhone, your Android, through Google Chrome, the web, and so forth, which is pretty cool. Today, like I said, I want to go and dive deep into the true cost of what FileMaker is, and maybe compare it to some other competitors out there that FileMaker could be having. It all depends on the type of business that you're in. And I know that almost every industry in business almost has an app made for them now as that SaaS business model. And it's very hard to compete with the SaaS business model because they're able to throw up a website really quickly. They're able to charge maybe, let's say, $9.99 per user per month. And then some of those SaaS business models have maybe you need a minimum of 5 users, like Claris does. So we're just going to dive deep between the clients that I've had and the industries that I'm in, and the amount of money it really costs to run software nowadays, and how does FileMaker fit in that, depending on the size of your business. Excuse me there. So I'm going to go on my computer here, and I'm on the claris.com/pricing/. And right away, when you're presented here, you're presented with FileMaker's really trying to push this cloud-based scenario of their FileMaker. So it's like FileMaker in the cloud, where they're doing a lot of the groundwork as far as the front end of showcasing your app. And basically, it's a platform where you can build an app online, actually, or with the FileMaker app, and then publish it through their FileMaker Connect scenario dashboard, I guess. I haven't really used the FileMaker, the FileMaker Cloud scenario, or the Claris FileMaker and Claris Connect. So there's so many different types of areas as far as putting your app online or using your app on just your local computer. So we're going to go through the cost. So right now, as we're presented here, essentials for Claris FileMaker, which is FileMaker in the cloud through Claris. It looks like it's $19 per user per month billed annually. So we're going to click on buy here, and we're going to give like a little overview of what this is. So it takes you to the Claire store, and the Claire store has tabs. You have Cloud for Teams, On-premise for Teams, single licenses for individuals, and Claire's Connect for automation. So the Cloud for Teams, Essentials plan hosting limit is 3 apps. So it sounds like you can only put 3 apps on this cloud hosting platform. You can only have between 5 and 10 users. You have 2 gigabytes of FileMaker data storage per user per year. No upgrades available. Compute, large only, no upgrades available. And then in the standard plan, we have 5 to 99 users. There's a 125 app hosting limit. There's 6 gigabytes of FileMaker data storage per user per year. The computing power varies based on numbers of users, upgrades available for purchase. Both the plans include an API usage, 2 gigabyte outbound data transfer for FileMaker data API / O data per user per month. There's 24/7 support in English, free for the first year. Security is end-to-end encryption with the HSM key management and single sign-on. Architect for privacy by default. Monitoring, around-the-clock monitoring by default by expert cloud ops, spec ops, and dev spec ops teams for peak performance and threat protection. That's pretty cool there. So right now I have Essentials selected. You can't go below 5 users. So Essentials is $19 per user per month. When you do a 12-month contract, that equals about $1,140. They have a 24-month contract term limit, which brings the cost down per user per month to $1,854. That gives you a total cost of $2,225. Or they have a 36-month contract length. That brings your cost down per user per month to $1,836, which brings you a total cost of $3,305. We have the standard version now, which is a more upgraded version of Essentials, which allows you to put more apps on your server, gives you a little bit more data per user per month. 5 users for 12-month contract for the standard edition in FileMaker Cloud. It costs $39 per user per month. The total cost is $2,340. A 24-month contract is $4,330, or a 36 months is $6,085. That brings the total user cost per month per user down to $33.80. So that's what cloud is all about. Then we have on-premise. On-premise is by far the best solution. Just gonna say it out loud. As far as like, if you're a large organization, a large business, even if you're a small business, on-premise is the best for your bank, but it does cost more money up front to get started. So what we're doing here on-premise, the annual contract. So server does have limitations, but I've never ever really met these limitations before. So with FileMaker Server, you get on-premise server, up to 3 servers to host your custom apps, access to all clients, FileMaker Pro, FileMaker Go, and FileMaker WebDirect. And the API usage is 2 gigabytes outbound data transfer for FileMaker Data API per user per month. And I've never even hit a gigabyte in the history of my development career for the businesses that I have and develop for. So on-premise, the annual 5 users, you can't go below 5 users. It starts at $15 per user per month. The 12-month contract is only $900, which is pretty reasonable. 24 months brings your user count down, cost down per user per month to $1,387. 24-month contract would cost you $1,665. Or you have a 36-month contract length, and you can get that down to $2,340. Now, the cool thing with on-premise is that you have the annual route or you have the perpetual route. And the cool thing with perpetual, which I highly recommend depending on the type of business, like this can be determined based off the developer you have and based off of how often your business changes. Now, it really just depends on those scenarios. Like if your business is something that doesn't change, to give you an example, like my parents have multiple businesses through the year, and one of those businesses is like farming type, but it's called fire prevention. They have tractors, and the tractors tow around large discs, like 10-foot to 15-foot disc, or we have mowers that have like 15-foot mowers that can disc large acreages of land for the city. Now, their business will never change. It's been the same for the last 25 years, meaning that they get work from the city. The city sends out notices to landholders saying, hey, you need to keep the city clean. You need to take care of the weeds on your properties. California is very big on fires. We're doing it for fire safety, but also to clean up the city. So the city hasn't changed that system since the beginning. Like my dad's been doing it since '94. When you have a business that doesn't really change much, your technology is not going to really change. So they're not going to upgrade their computers very often. For a while there, they did have Windows XP. They were running Microsoft Access, and then they switched over to FileMaker. And they have new sophisticated technologies as far as like the Core i9 Windows computers built all in and stuff like that. They don't use any apps. So my dad's very set on using a portable camera, and they take pictures on an SD card. And then my mother, she just takes the SD card and inserts it into the computer and then drags and drops the pictures into designated document folders for the city. And the only thing FileMaker is there for is for billing purposes. And for them, it's way better for them to buy a perpetual license for FileMaker Server, because they can still be using FileMaker Server 2014, and they don't owe FileMaker a single cent or dollar or check or anything for the term of that contract. The cool thing with perpetual though is you can also buy long-term contracts so that you can still get updates. So let's say you want to make that long-term investment maybe in 3 years, then I want to slow down the use. And that's the cool thing with FileMaker Perpetual on-premise licensing, that you can buy it and you can own it for a specific amount of time. I know people that are still on FileMaker Server 7, and they're still using their app today. And they've actually made changes. The only challenge you run into with making changes down the line is finding a developer that still has access to that old version FileMaker development platform, because you can't just jump between like FileMaker 7 and like FileMaker 12 development code. So you can't use like FileMaker 14's development platform to jump back to FileMaker 7. You need to have like that FileMaker Pro application to make development changes. That's the only downside with that. But again, technology is not changing as drastic as everyone really thinks it is. So I really highly recommend Perpetual. I had a client just recently. He's in the construction industry, and it really doesn't change much, to be honest. You have work order, you have customers, you have real estate, you have contract agreements, and you have basically like estimates and creating estimates and work orders, inspections and projects, and keeping in tune with like a calendar. So it gets a little fishy there, because if you're using like third-party apps like a calendar plugin like maybe Seed Code, depending on how they change their platform and their code and how it runs on your app, if they start pushing away from older versions of FileMaker and it doesn't become compatible, then you can run into some issues there with Perpetual. So it all depends on like the gamble you're willing to take, and just it's all about figuring out all those intersections that you can possibly have down the line. But I feel comfortable with the client that I had last year, actually no, 2 years ago. We started him on FileMaker 18. In 2019, they switched from annual to perpetual. So they bought FileMaker Perpetual 12-month contract for 25 users, and they spent that $10,800. Now, with that said, they're able to, it's going to take them about 3 years to pay that off. But the cool thing with the 12-month contract, we're going to actually pushing to FileMaker 19, which we're still getting the latest and greatest updates. So the the term limit doesn't really start until year 2 anyways. So you kind of get 2 full years right off the bat, and you really only have to survive that 1 year, that one more year with your technology as far as like having issues. So I really think they're going to hit maybe 5 or 6 years out of that contract. And basically what that means is they're going to be saving money. Meaning what I can do here on my screen is I'm going to bring up the calculator here. And we're just going to jump back and forth between annual and perpetual just to give you an idea of what it would take to basically break even. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to annual, $25 users, and annual price for a 12-month contract is $12 per user per month. So this works out to $3,600 per year if they're on that annual. And being on annual is great too, because you're getting that new version of FileMaker Server every year. But that it doesn't really make sense to be in that, because if you're working with a developer and you're on-premise, unless you have a full-time developer on your team, then that developer is going to have to close everything down on the server, transfer everything over to the new version of FileMaker Server, starting up plugins, starting up script servers and stuff like that. It becomes tedious, and you're going to be paying that developer anyways. So it's one of those things that, like, is it really worth annual contract if perpetual's there? So we're going to do the math here. For perpetual for 12-month contract is $10,800. So let's go back to annual. So we're going to type in the calculator here, $10,800 divided by what would the annual price would have been, which is $3,600. So we're going to divide that by $3,600. That equals 3 years, and that's kind of what I was getting to before. You have to hit that 3 year mark for it to be worth it to you. And like I said before, if you're buying the 12-month contract, you're really getting 2 years out of it, because when you buy it, you're getting the current year, and then if you buy it in a smart way of buying it right when like FileMaker's about to release a new version. We're kind of a different agile world now, so I don't know how they're going to work that out with, like, oh, this is now FileMaker 20 and you have to buy a new license. I don't know how they're going to do that just yet. But if you play it smart, you kind of get, like, they started in 18, but they bought perpetual in 2019. I'm sorry, they started on FileMaker 18, but they built it in 2019, so they're on FileMaker Server 18. But now they're on FileMaker Server 19, and their contract might hit that 20 mark. So they're actually going to get FileMaker 20 within that contract year. So them surviving another 2, maybe 3 years on top of the 2 years they've already served is going to be doable, and they're going to be saving. So we already said that 3 years for perpetual, it would take 3 years for perpetual to pay off. So that means that if you get, let's say, 5 years out of that cost, we do 10,800 divided by 6 years. That brings the total cost per year down to $1,800 for 25 users. So if we go back to that annual scenario here, for the same 25 users, before it was $12 per user per month. If we divide that $1,800 by 25 now, and divide that by 12, that brings it down almost by half, because you've prolonged FileMaker so long, almost twice as long as the perpetual license was originally designed for. That brings you down to $6 per user. So even if perpetual doesn't work out and you have to upgrade, you just want to hit that 3 year mark. If you don't hit that 3 year mark, then it starts costing your company money. And it's one of these things that you just have to test out and see. And if you can go, if you can get that, if you barely hit that 3-year mark with perpetual, then it might be better for you to start looking at that annual price, because it actually would be cheaper for you. Because if you buy perpetual and let's say you have to buy an upgrade by year 2, it's going to start costing your company money doing that way. So like I said before, it's all about figuring out the true cost of what it costs to run your business and how many changes you're going to make in your FileMaker application. Now, getting to a different point of view on this, I'm going to go to. I have a blog. I have add-on FileMaker. Now, when add-ons came out originally, I was going to be creating a bunch of add-ons. I have HTML background. I have JavaScript background, but I'm just having so many issues with developing add-ons right now. For some reason, there is just not being friendly with me, so I've just put it on the back burner. But one thing that I did is I could have sworn I made a blog here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, here we go. I did a AWS, the Productive Computing AWS course. I just completed the FileMaker Developer environment using AWS course from Productive Computing. It was really great and straight to the point. I was able to set up my first instance within a couple of hours, and most of the time was waiting for AWS account to fully activate. I highly recommend the FileMaker course if you're looking to set up many servers for clients/companies. So for my last couple of clients that are pretty large businesses, I had them purchase a custom PC built computer with the ability for easy expansion when needed. They both actually went pretty all out with Core i9 processor, 64 gigabytes of memory, and 1 terabyte SSD storage. This costing their company about $3,700 upfront costs for just the server. So now what we can start doing here is, let's say we're going to buy that perpetual. Let's say we're going to be a company that let's open up notes here. You might see some of my notes that I got going. So we already said, so from FileMaker Perpetual, we said for 25 users, it's going to cost, well, let's play simple. Let's just go 5 users. So on-premise annual, let's change this to 5. Okay, so 5 users perpetual costs $2,700. And this has to last 3 years minimum, just to get our money's worth for that price that we're going to be paying. And then what I said over here, and if you had 5 users, you don't even need to go all out with the kind of server that this company did. But they're a 25 user company only using WebDirect and constantly uploading photos, so they had to kind of go all out. But I mean, let's just say for just to play around with the numbers, let's say you had to spend $3,700, and this was a custom PC, and this cost probably like $300 worth of that is building the PC, having a company build the PC. So you can also save a little bit money buying the components yourself and building the computer yourself. But let's say you just wanted to get a custom PC built for $3,700. So we had, for FileMaker Perpetual 5 users, we're at $2,700 for, and we need to try to make that last for 3 years. We're going to buy a custom all-out server that's we're really not going to outgrow, depending on how big your company grows. To give you an idea, a Core i9 processor, I think it's, I don't know what generation it is. I'd have to check that out. Let's just say it's the most recent gen, which I know we just did use the most recent gen in the Core i9 because we did set that up in Arizona. 64 gigabytes of memory. That's kind of borderline. I would recommend going to 128 gigabytes of memory. So let's bump this up a couple $100 so that we can get that extra. Let's just say a standalone $4,000. and then 1 terabyte SSD, which is pretty good. They're not really hitting stages. I think they're like 20% usage. There was like 200 gigabytes, and that's between other configurations that we have on the server. So this $4,000 will get us the Core i9, 128 gigabytes of RAM, and 1 terabyte SSD, which would be really good. And this should last your company at least 6 to 10 years, I would say, if longer. I can say that without a doubt because I'm using a MacBook Pro right now from 2015, and this computer has like a Core i7. It originally had 256 gigabytes. I upgraded to 1 terabyte SSD, and I'm on only 16 gigabytes of memory. So, and this is 2015. I've had it since 2015. So we're hitting 6 years already. So I know this, without a doubt, should last 10 years. So then I also go along with the blog and say, but this buys their company a server machine outright. So meaning that being outright, when you pay that $4,000, it's your computer. You can do whatever you want with that computer. With that being said, that $4,000 also includes the cost of running and purchasing the Windows Server platform, because you need to buy Windows Server 2016 or 2019, depending on which version you need. And that does come out with a hefty price as well. So that $4,000 is not just the server, but it's also the operating system that you need on the server. Now, getting to that point, AWS running that same type of configuration depends, because there's this other company called, what's it called? IONOS. This is a company that I just came across from another developer of mine. And they have Intel servers. And the cool thing with this, so this gives you so the Intel Xeon 4 cores, 8 threads. This right here, the 64, this is kind of similar to what similar to what the company has. So if you look at something like this is in the cloud, and we want the Windows setup. We want Windows Server 2019. United States, and let's just go. We can even go with that 725 gigabytes. We don't even know. Well, let's keep it comparison. So we're going to do 2,000 gigabytes. So this is a little bit more than what our server would have been. This can give us a total cost here. So this over here is $130 per month, $35 and $140. That's called backup. So let's do some math here, just so we can compare how long the server would last us. So $130 plus 35 plus 140. So just for the server costs alone in the cloud, meaning that we don't buy physical hardware in our office, it's going to cost us $305 per month. Now we multiply that by 12 months. That is almost the cost to purchase a server outright, guys. $3,660. This is for full-time use in the cloud. That means the hardware that you're spending on this stuff is almost equivalent to just buying a computer outright. So not only do you have the annual cost, let's say if you went annual. So we're going to do ionos.com, similar server costs you about $3,700 per year. That's pretty sufficient. Now, mind you, it's at the comfort of your own computer. You can set this up, spin it up, and put everything on it. You don't have to go buy anything. Okay, now we're talking about the difference between convenience and saving your company money. So right now we're at $3,700 per year. So that means buying that type of server out the gate is already saving you money, because it pays itself off the very first year you have it. So that's our server cost there. Now we need to get into, okay, the cost of development, cost of your app. Now this is dependent on the type of app you need and how long it's going to take. Now everyone's different, the type of developer you hired, the speed at which the developer can develop, the speed at which your developer can understand what you're building. It's very hard to put a cost on that. With that said, with the cost of development, to put it in the perspective of two different apps I have. So I've built a real estate app and I have a construction app. And then within this real estate app, it's taking me about 4 to 6 months of development. And then the construction app took me almost 11 months of development. Now, for me, I didn't charge what a normal developer would have charged. It was my very first job, and I had never developed something so big before. So I charged for this customer $5,000 a month, which is pretty cheap if you convert it to hours. But with that being said, that cost that company about $55,000 investment just to get them a custom app for their business. Now the real estate app is an app that I made myself. I designed it myself. I'm inventing it. Now 4 to 6 months. Let's say 6 months times 4 weeks a month. 6 months times 4 weeks a month times each week has 5 days, 5 working days. Let's just say 5 days. It's 120 days times 8 hours a day. That's 960 hours worth of work. So we can actually round that out because actually per year is 2,000 working hours. So we're going to say 1,000 working hours of development time for the real estate app. Now, I haven't really gotten a clear answer what it really costs to hire a developer for FileMaker. It's anywhere from like $150 to $200. So I'm going to meet in the middle and say $185. So $185 per hour for 1,000 hours. Well, that gives you a way, 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 way bigger perspective of what it's going to really cost to make a custom app. We're at $185,000. Is that right? 1,000 hours times $185 per hour. Yep. $185,000. One thing you got to think about though, this is a custom app and this was a custom app. One took larger than the other. So it all depends on how much you're charging to develop an app for someone, which makes sense. What is common though in FileMaker is that we have companies building already made apps. So let's say this real estate app I have made, I just want to sell to someone. So I'm just making money. I'm not making that $185 developing. I got to make that money over time by selling the platform. So let's say I want to charge $200 per user per month. Let's actually go to $150 because the construction app that I developed, we actually converted an app that used to charge $150 per user per month, and there was a 5-user minimum. So the 5-user minimum at $150 a month times 5 users, $750 a month. Times multiply that by 12. It's only $9,000 per month down. Okay. So what if we did something like what FileMaker does? For their perpetual costs, what they do is they basically just take what an annual cost and they multiply it by 3, which would be a 3-year advance payment for perpetual. So if we multiply this by 3, that's $27,000, which is pretty reasonable. So what if we did a perpetual real estate app license 3 years advance, but they own it? That would cost the customer $27,000 upfront cost. So if we did everything perpetual right now, if the user wanted 5 users, that would cost them $2,700 perpetual. They got a server up and running for $4,000. And they bought a ready-made app outright for $27,000. So this would give us a total cost. We have $2,700 plus $4,000 plus $27,000. That's a total cost of $33,700. Upfront costs to start a custom app owned software database. They owe nobody money after this, unless they want changes made and software fixes made based off of updates. So now we can play with the numbers here and what it really costs your business. So we have $33,700 upfront costs, and you own your hardware and software, and you never have to pay for that again, unless, like I said, things change. So let's go back to annual. So FileMaker annual cost is $900. So we're going to do 5 users annual. So 5 users annual for FileMaker would cost $900. We already did the math, and we said it was going to cost, what was it? It was like $3,700 for running a server equivalent to the server that we had as full-time use. And then we have to consider our annual app, which costs the user $9,000. So we have a FileMaker server here. We have cloud computer, and then you have software use, software annual contract for 5 users. So an annual standpoint, if you did everything in the cloud, or everything in the cloud, you have FileMaker server annual, you have annual cloud computing, and you have an annual software cost. So now we have $900 for FileMaker server annual 12-month contract plus $3,700 cloud computing plus $9,000 for software. That brings you a total of $13,600 you're spending per year just for software. So the $13,600 per year just for software. So if we take that $33,700 divided by the $13,600, it should actually equal about 3 years advance. Oops. So it's 2.5 years. So that means it would take you 2.5 years to get your money's worth buying perpetual everything. So it would take you 2.5 years to actually making it worth your while to own something. But the fact is that every year after that, at 2.5 years, you're breaking even as what it would have cost you annually. And then every year thereafter, you're saving money for your company. Because we already said for every additional year, you're going to be saving $13,600. So it would take you it would take you 5 years for your software to make you an additional $33,700. This is if you went all perpetual on server, app, and hardware, which is insane. Like, it's going to pay itself off in 2.5 years, and every year after that, you're going to be making money on your software and your hardware and your FileMaker server. With that being said, it all depends on how often are you planning on making changes and having software updates and upgrading cell phones and apps and all those things. Everything makes sense. But it all depends on the type of company you have and how often you're planning on changing. And if you're not planning on changing too often, then I highly recommend your company make the investment, a long-term investment, so that you can actually own software and not have to constantly rent it. Because basically what you're doing is you're paying these large corporations to buy this hardware that they're not throwing out every year. They're just using the same hardware, and you're leasing the same hardware every year. This is like leasing a car. There's no reason to lease cars anymore. Like, you can own a car. Own your freaking cars, guys. So that's a little overview as far as pricing your application, pricing what it really costs to have software nowadays, and depending on the type of business that you have and what you're really paying for. If you're not in the realm of paying those large, like $150 per user per month for 5 user minimum, you're probably not in the same ball game. It all depends on the type of ball game that you're in. And this even gets competitive. If you find the same FileMaker app that you're using for $9.99 per user per month, and there's a 5 user minimum, that's $50 per. It trickles down in so many different areas and ways of thinking. With that said, guys, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm going to be posting this on my podcast and YouTube channel. So if you wanted to get the visual overview of like what I did and where I went and how I made the calculations, it will be there on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is FileMaker Developer. I'm probably going to be switching the FileMaker Developer name for the YouTube channel to Think Studio. Haven't decided that just yet. And on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, and Spotify, and all that, you'll be listening to the audio version there. I really appreciate your guys' attention here, and I really hope it opens your viewpoint on owning software and not really renting it. You can check out my website at thethink.studio, where you can find some of my custom apps and purchase development hours, and also learn about FileMaker development. And if you guys need to reach me, you can reach me at Cameron@thethink.studio, or my cell phone number is 951-312-0408. Thanks, guys, and I really appreciate it. Look forward to helping you. Bye, guys.